The Nikon F-mount is a type of interchangeable lens mount developed by Nikon for its 35mm format single-lens reflex cameras. The F-mount was first introduced on the Nikon F camera in 1959, and features a 3-lug bayonet mount with a 44 mm throat and a flange to focal plane distance of 46.5 mm. The company continues to use variations of the same lens mount specification for its film and digital SLR cameras. History: the Nikon F-mount is one of only 2 SLR lens mounts which were not abandoned by their associated manufacturer upon the introduction of autofocus, but rather extended to meet new requirements related to metering, autofocus, and aperture control. The large variety of F-mount compatible lenses makes it the largest system of interchangeable flange mount photographic lenses in history. Over 400 different Nik lenses are compatible with the system. The F-mount is also popular in scientific and industrial applications, most notably machine vision. The F-mount has been in production for over 5 decades, making it the only SLR lens mount which has been produced for over 50 years. System of lenses: in addition to Nikon's own range of Nik lenses, brands of F-mount photographic lenses include Zeiss, Voigtlander Currency, Schneider, Anger Copyright NER, Samyang, Sigma, Tokina, Tamron, Hartbly, Kiev Arsenal, Lensbaby, and Vivitar. F-mount cameras include current models from Nikon, Fujifilm, Shinar, JVC, Kenko and Horseman. Numerous other manufacturers employ the F-mount in non-photographic imaging applications. Compatibility: the F-mount has a significant degree of both backward and forward compatibility. Many current autofocus F-mount lenses can be used on the original Nikon F, and the earliest manual focus F-mount lenses of the 1960s and early 1970s can, with some modification, still be used to their fullest on all professional-class Nikon cameras. Incompatibilities do exist, however, and adventurous F-mount users should consult product documentation in order to avoid problems. For example, many electronic camera bodies cannot meter without a CPU-enabled lens. The aperture of G-designated lenses cannot be controlled without an electronic camera body, and non-AI lenses can cause mechanical damage to later model bodies unless they are modified to meet the AI specification. Many manual focus lenses can be converted to allow metering with consumer Nikon bodies by adding a dandelion chip to the lens. Image circle: most Nikon F-mount lenses cover the standard 36A, 24mm area of 35mm format and the Nikon FX format, while DX-designated lenses cover the 24A, 16mm area of the Nikon DX format, and industrial F-mount lenses have varying coverage. DX lenses may produce vignetting when used on film and FX cameras. However, Nikon lenses designed for film cameras will work on Nikon digital system cameras with the limitations noted above. Mounting and control rings: unlike most other lens mounts, F-mount lenses lock by turning counterclockwise and unlock clockwise. Nearly all F-mount lenses have zoom and focus controls that rotate in the clockwise direction to increase focal length and focus distance respectively. This convention is also used in Pentax K-mount and Sony A-mount lenses but is opposite of the direction normally used by Canon. F-mount lenses also typically have aperture rings that turn clockwise to close. Compatible lenses. Nik designations: Nikon has introduced many proprietary designations for F-mount Nik lenses, reflecting design variations and developments both in lenses and the F-mount itself. There are also unofficial designations used by collectors and dealers to differentiate similar lenses. Pre-autofocus. An A-Auto Nik A designation for the first generation of F-mount lenses, introduced in 1959. These were all single-coated, and meter coupling was provided by a prong fixed to the lens's aperture ring. The photomic T through the lens light meter introduced in 1965 worked at full aperture, so the maximum aperture of the lens had to be communicated to the meter by mounting the lens with the aperture ring set to f/5.6, and then turning the ring to first the minimum and then the maximum apertures. Early versions are marked Nippon Kogaku Japan, and have their focal length stated in centimeters, but models produced after about 1965 have focal lengths stated in millimeters. The Nippon Kogaku Japan engraving was replaced by Nikon from 1971 onwards. Warning: mounting a non-AI lens can damage many modern Nikon camera bodies. AI cameras that still may use non-AI lenses includes the Nikon F2A f2AS with Photomic A or AS Finder, Nikon EL2, as well as Nikon FM and FE. In addition, the Nikon DF, a DSLR introduced in late 2013, can use non-AI lenses. The A lenses can be converted to the AI specification. See AI below. T, Q, P, H, S, O, N, UD, QD, PD. Euro appears immediately before or after the nickname on F-type lenses, designating the number of optical elements in the design. Shortfooters: quattro, penta, hex, septem, octo, novem, undecim, quatuordecim and pentadecim. The terms unus and pni were also apparently designated, but never used. Terms p equals penta, h equals hexa, and pd equals pentadecim were used to avoid ambiguity with quattro, septem and quatuordecim. This designation scheme was dropped with the introduction of modern NICs in 1974. Auto: a Euro designation for F-type lenses indicating an automatic diaphragm. Not to be confused with automatic exposure or autofocus, the designation fell out of use in the early 1970s and was not carried on to K-type lenses. CA Euro indicates a multi-coated F-type lens. Appears with an interpunct after the number of optical elements. This designation was introduced in 1971 and discontinued in 1974 with the introduction of modern NICs, when multi-coating had become standard practice. KA Euro Modern, or new NICs introduced in 1974. While pre-AI for compatibility purposes, K-type lenses introduced the new cosmetics that would be used from 1977 onwards for AI-type lenses. The scalloped metal focus rings were replaced with rubber grip insets, and the use of element number and coating designations was discontinued. The K designation itself is believed to be derived from the Japanese Konichi Teki, loosely translatable as modern, or contemporary. AI: a Euro manual focus with automatic maximum aperture indexing, introduced in 1977. The AI standard adds a meter coupling ridge to the aperture ring, which encodes the current aperture setting relative to the maximum, and a lens speed indexing post on the mounting flange, which encodes the maximum aperture itself. The ridge and post couple to the camera's light meter. Lenses designated AIS, Series E, and AF all include these features of AI. Current professional Nikon camera bodies link with a meter coupling ridge, but the lens speed indexing post is ignored and the maximum aperture value is set electronically by the operator instead. AI-designated lenses also improved on the original meter coupling prong, adding cutaways which allow more ambient light to fall on the aperture ring, increasing visibility on cameras which optically projected the setting inside the viewfinder. AI de Euro: an unofficial designation for lenses converted partially or completely from non-AI to AI. This is accomplished by replacing the aperture ring and the metering prong or by modifying the original part. Some independent camera repair technicians continue to offer such conversions. ISA Euro: the successor to AI, the AIS specification added two mechanical enhancements: a Euro standardized aperture control, and the focal length indexing ridge. A Euro required for the shutter priority and other auto aperture exposure modes of the Nikon FA, f301 per Newton 2000, f501 per Newton 2020, and f4 cameras. Later cameras did not require these features, and interoperate with AI and AIS lenses identically. The term AIS is now commonly used to refer to manual focus lenses, and Nikon continues to produce 8' lens models in its AIS line. All Nikon AF lenses with aperture rings also meet the AIS specification, except for their lack of a meter coupling prong. Standardized aperture control. IS lens apertures move in a standardized fashion in relation to their stop-down levers. The levers of AI and pre-AI lenses were intended only to close the aperture to its manual setting. The advance of aperture control by the camera body itself, by partial actuation of the stop-down lever, meant more precision was required for consistent exposure. This feature is indicated by a lens-type signal notch in the lens mount. Although later Nikon cameras cannot control the apertures of AIS lenses as the f4, they control the apertures of AF lenses using the same method of partial lever actuation and standardized response. Focal length indexing ridge. IS lenses with a focal length of 135 mm or longer are indicated by a ridge on the lens mount, used by FA, f501, and f4 to engage high-speed biased program auto-exposure. Electromechanical and data communication, AF are the original autofocus designation, indicating focus driven by a motor inside the camera body. All AF lenses have an integrated CPU. Used in the form AF NIC, this should not confused with the original autofocus lenses for the f3 AF camera, which were designated AF NIC, and are considered predecessors to AFI lenses. AFDA designation for an AF lens with D functionality. AFIA autofocus internal. Driven by a cordless DC motor. Used only in long telephoto lenses starting in 1992. Replaced with AFS in 1996. AFSA autofocus silent. Uses a silent wave motor to focus quietly and quickly. Similar to Canon's USM technology. Introduced in 1996. AFNA indicates the new version of an AF lens. The change from plastic focus rings on early AF lenses to the new rubber and set focus ring is often indicated by the AFN designation. CPU Central Processing Unit. The lens is fitted with electrical contacts for digital communication with the camera. All AF and AIP lenses are CPU lenses. Some non-professional Nikon cameras require CPU lenses for metered operation. This designation appears in specifications but not lens names. DA distance. Indicated after the F number in the name, and also occasionally designated AFD. The lens electronically communicates focus distance information, which is incorporated into the camera's exposure calculations in 3D matrix metering mode, and also DTTL and ITTL flash auto exposure. All AFI, AFS, and G-type lenses are also D-type. E or PCA electromagnetic diaphragm. The aperture diaphragm of an E lens is controlled digitally by the camera, and actuated electromagnetically by a system housed within the lens, rather than employing the F-mount's traditional mechanical diaphragm linkage. Currently this system appears only in certain perspective control lenses, designated PCE, the AFS 800mm f/5.6 EF-LED VR, and the AFS 400mm f/2.8 EF-LED VR. The E feature is only supported by the Nikon D3 and newer cameras. PCE lenses require manual diaphragm operation on other cameras. Not to be confused with Series E lenses. GA designation for lenses without an aperture ring, indicated after the F number in the name. G lenses retain the mechanical diaphragm coupling of other NICs, but the aperture setting can only be controlled by the camera body. Only autofocus bodies with command dials are capable of controlling G lenses. Older autofocus bodies will work with G lenses in shutter priority and program modes with full opened aperture. Some recent G lenses feature a weatherproofing gasket around the mounting flange. G lenses otherwise have the same characteristics as D lenses. P or AIPA AI with program. CPU-enabled variation of AIS. Includes only the 45/2.8p, 500/4p in 1200-1700/5.6-8p NIC lenses. Zeiss ZF2 and Voigtla Currency-Derslauer lenses are also AIP designs, although they are not designated as such. Not to be confused with early lenses marked NIC-P meaning a 5-element lens. Optical design, aspherical or aspheric lens elements. Also hybrid used, thin molded aspheric elements coupled to a conventional glass element. This designation appears in specifications but not lens names. CRCA Euro Close Range Correction. Improved performance at close focus distances. Achieved by internal focus movements that move differently relative to the movement of the other focusing elements. This designation appears in specifications but not lens names. DCA Euro Defocus Control. DC lenses have a separate control ring for spherical aberration, which affects primarily the appearance of out-of-focus areas, also known as bokeh. At extreme settings, DC lenses can generate an overall soft focus effect. Includes only the AFDC NIC 100 5mm f/2D and AFDC NIC 135 mm f/2D. ED a Euro Extra Low Dispersion Glass incorporated to reduce chromatic aberration. Lenses using ED elements usually carry a gold ring around the barrel to indicate the fact, and older lenses were also marked NIC or ED. In addition to normal ED glass, Super ED glass is used in some lenses. Fluor Euro Fluorite. Designates a lens which includes one or more elements constructed of fluorite instead of glass. Currently includes only the AFS 800mm f/5.6 EFL ED-VR, available since 2013, and the AFS 400mm f/2.8 EFL ED-VR, available since 2014. GN a Euro Guide Number. Assists in flash exposure on cameras without automatic flash metering. The flash's guide number is set on the lens, and the aperture is accordingly coupled to the lens's focus ring for correct exposure. The only GN lens, the super compact GN Auto NIC, was built during the late 1960s and early 1970s. HRI a Euro High Refractive Index Elements. Contains elements with a refractive index greater than 2. This designation appears in specifications but not lens names. IF a Euro Internal Focus. Focusing is accomplished through the movement of internal lens groups, eliminating extension and rotation of the front lens element, allowing focus to be driven quickly by a small motor. IF lenses also allow the use of a polarizing filter without the need to readjust it after focus. Micro a Euro Micro NIC lenses are capable of high reproduction ratios, typically 1:1 or 1:1, for macro photography. The first micro NIC lenses were created for producing micro forms of kanji text. NA Euro indicates the nanocrystal coat, a relatively new type of lens coating that originated in Nikon's semiconductor division. Lenses with this coating feature the logo of an N inside an elongated hexagon on the nameplate. NIC a Euro Nikon Integrated Coating, a proprietary multi-coating. Appears in specifications but not lens names. PC a Euro Perspective Control. Lens features shift movements to control perspective and depth of field. Newer PC lenses are designated PCE. Not to be confused with early lenses marked NIC Par-C, meaning a 5-element coated lens. Reflex a Euro designates a catadioptric lens. RF a Euro Rear Focusing. Quite similar to internal focusing. Focusing is accomplished through the movement of rear lens groups, eliminating extension and rotation of the front lens element, allowing focus to be driven quickly by a small motor. RF lenses also allow the use of a polarizing filter without the need to readjust it after focus. SIC a Euro Super Integrated Coating, a proprietary multi-coating. Appears in specifications but not lens names. UV a Euro lens is designed for imaging ultraviolet light. VR a Euro Vibration Reduction. Uses a moving optical group to reduce the photographic effects of camera shake. Some VR lenses also support a panning mode, detecting horizontal movement of the lens and minimizing only vertical vibration. The second generation of VR is called VR2, which is designed to offer another one-stop advantage over original VR, but lenses with this feature are still designated simply VR. Alternate product lines, DX a Euro lens designed for the smaller Nikon DX format. Vignetting may occur if used on a 35mm format or Nikon FX format camera in full frame mode, although some DX lenses cover the full 135 frame at longer focal lengths. 9 Euro lenses designed for use with the now-defunct Proneo APS-SLR. These are all autofocus zoom lenses. They are not compatible with cameras outside of the Proneo system unless mirror lockup is used. Series E A line of lower-cost lenses manufactured during the 1980s for Nikon's amateur SLRs. They sacrificed some construction quality and employed simpler optical designs. Early Series E lenses were built to the AI specification. Later Series E lenses were upgraded to the AIS specification, and are identifiable by a metal ring on the barrel. None of this family of lenses were branded Nik, instead carrying the text Nikon Lens Series E. Esoteric, Bellows a Euro lens designed exclusively for use on a bellows unit, primarily for macro photography. Also called short mount. Since some Nikon bellows allow for a front rise, they allow a limited variety of lenses to be used similarly to a PC lens. Medical Euro-Nik designation for a macro lens with a built-in ring light strobe system, designed for clinical and scientific applications. Nokta Euro-Night. Specialty low-light lens designed for maximum sharpness at the widest aperture setting. The name has been applied only to the Nokta Nik 58mm f/1.2. OP a Euro orthographic projection. Fisheye lens that produces an image which maintains the same brightness in the image as in the object, with no fall-off at the edges. UW a Euro underwater lenses. Produced for the Nikon OS systems. Lenses with integrated autofocus motors. Nik lenses designated AFS and AFI clearly have integrated autofocus motors, but other manufacturers included in the list do not designate it as clearly. These lenses are needed for autofocus on certain newer low-end Nikon cameras which lack an autofocus motor. These are the Nikon D40, D40X, D60, D3000, D3100, D3200, D3300, D5000, D5100, D5200, D5300 and the Nikon 1 series with FT1 adapter. Perspective control lenses. Nikon PC lenses, like other perspective control lenses, offer adjustments that duplicate certain view camera movements. The 28mm and 35mm PC lenses support shifting the lens in relation to the film or sensor plane, while Nikon's 24mm, 45mm, and 85mm PCE lenses also support tilting. Nikon currently offers 4 different PC lenses for sale, the 3 PCE Niks, and the 85mm PC Nik. The 45mm and 85mm Euro OE Micro Euro lenses offer close focus for macrophotography. The PCE lenses offer automatic aperture control with the D3, D3S, D3X, D700, D300, D300S, D600, D800, D4, D7000, D7100, D610, D4S, D810, and D750 cameras. With earlier camera models, a PCE lens operates like a PC lens. The PC Micro Nik 85mm f/2.8D lens offers only preset aperture control, actuated mechanically by pressing a plunger. History: in July 1962, Nikon released the first interchangeable perspective control lens available for a single-lens reflex camera, the 35mm f/3.5 PC Nik. This was followed in 1968 by a redesigned 35mm f/2.8 PC Nikra in which the shifting portion of the lens was further from the camera's body, in order to clear the new photomic meters. The last optical redesign of this 35mm lens was released in 1980. The 35mm PC Nik did not meet the need of photographers for a wider angle lens, so in July 1975 Nikon released the 28mm f/4 PC Nik. In February 1981 Nikon released an improved version of this lens, the 28mm f/3.5 PC Nik, with a new optical design. This was the last of the completely manual PC Niks to be offered. Specifications: Zeiss ZF. Zeiss ZF series lenses are manual focus designs Nikon AIS type aperture indexing. They are manufactured by Cosina to Zeiss specifications. Four design variations are designated ZF, ZF2, ZFI, and ZFIR. ZF is the original product line. ZF2 lenses are CPU-enabled, offering full metering compatibility with the full range of AF Nikon SLR cameras. ZFI lenses add mechanical locks for focus and aperture, and additional environmental sealing, for industrial applications. ZFIR lenses are adapted to infrared imaging, with coatings that transmit wavelengths up to 1100 nm, and focus scales marked for infrared. Zeiss Camp 2 CP2 lenses are a series of Zeiss compact prime cinema lenses which present f-mount as one of three mounting options. The lenses cover the 36A, 24mm area of the 35mm format or Nikon FX format, and lenses 28mm and longer share a common t-stop of 2.1. Hart Bly, Kenko, Kiev Arsenal, MCTS Alsat 35mm f/2.8 tilt shift, MC Pelling 8mm f/3.5, MC Pelling 17mm f/2, 8, MC Alsat H50mm f/1, 4, MC Zoom Alsat M80 to 200mm f/4, 5, APO Alsat H300mm f/2, 8, Voigtla Currency Dare. Anger Copyright NER, 28 to Euro 70 f/2.6 AF, 35 Euro 70 f/2.5-3.3, 70 Euro 210 f/3.5, 180 f/2.3 DEM APO, 200 f/2.8 DEM ED, Schneider Kreuznach, PC Superangulan 28 f/2.8, PCTS Superangulan 50 f/2.8 HM, PCTS Macro Samar 90 f/4.0 HM, Samyang, Sigma, Tamron, Tokina. Compatible cameras: Nikon F, N, and D series SLR cameras. Nikomat FT, and EL series SLR cameras. Nikon 1 series with FT1 adapter, Fujifilm SLRs based on Nikon bodies, including FinePix S1 Pro, FinePix S2 Pro, FinePix S3 Pro, FinePix S5 Pro. Canon M15 PCL industrial camera, Kodak SLRs DCS series based on Nikon bodies, including Kodak DCS-100, Kodak DCS-200, Kodak North Carolina, 2000/North Carolina, 2000E, Kodak DCS-315/330, Kodak DCS-410, Kodak DCS-420, Kodak DCS-460, Kodak DCS-620/620X, Kodak DCS-660/660M, Kodak DCS-720X, Kodak DCS-760, Kodak DCS Pro 14N, Kodak DCS Pro 14NX, Kodak DCS Pro SLR/N. Medium format systems, Horseman G wide camera, Shine RM system. Open reflex, video cameras, JVC JYHM-Q30, Red 1 digital video camera, camera-like adapters, RedRock M2, Letters Extreme, Shoot 35 SGPRO, P+S Technique Mini 35, Mavitab. Kiev Arsenal, Kiev 17, Kiev 19, Kiev 19M, Kiev 20. Ricoh Singlex, see also, History of the single-lens reflex camera, full-frame digital SLR, Nikon S-mount, Nikon 1 mount, list of Nikon F-mount lenses with integrated autofocus motors, lenses for SLR and DSLR cameras, references. External links, technical information on the Nikon F-mount, Nik lens acronyms explained, Nikon manual focus lens versions, Nikon lens positioning map, Nikon lens database, Nikon lens links.